Well, today on the show, I am joined by Scott Robinson. Now, Scott always had a passion for cars right from an early age. He followed that passion by becoming a BMW Master Technician in 1988, and he also found himself racing karts and open-wheel Formula 2 cars in his spare time. Scotty moved to the UK in 1991, working for several major BMW dealer groups before landing a position with McLaren Cars, working as a master technician on the F1 road car. After 7 years at McLaren Cars and a total of 14 years working in the UK, he returned to Australia to the BMW dealer network and took up a sales career that allowed him to be involved in special projects, building motorsport cars, and also becoming the technical manager for the Mini Challenge race series. More new challenges came his way as a brand manager for such marques as Lamborghini and Lotus, with a focus of growing these boutique brands in Australia. With his personal passion for restoring classic cars and race car preparation, Scott started his own business, Modern Classic Motorsport, here in Brisbane. I'm looking forward to this. Scotty, welcome. Mate, thank you for making the time to come in, joining me in the studio.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Good to catch up again. Our paths have crossed a few times recently, but it's been way too long, so lovely to be here.
Mate, a few times, and we were just laughing, say off the air before, a mutual friend who we know. This world of cars and motorsport is a very, very small world.
Very true.
But Scotty, I'm interested in you today. What I'd like to do is I'd like to go all the way back to when you were just a little whippersnapper, long before you've gone and done all the cool things that you've gone on to do. As a young man, what was it about cars that spoke to you?
It goes back to, playing with toy cars as a kid, Lego, building trucks, building cars, Hot Wheels, Matchbox toys, scale electric sets, all that kind of stuff. My dad was quite into cars. He wasn't as car passionate as a lot of people are, but he liked cars, and he tinkered with cars at home a little bit, not much. But the nice part was when my brother and I were young, we would go to motor racing events as well because he liked that too. So I was introduced to motorsport pretty young. Went and watched Group A touring cars, especially when we moved up to Brisbane from Sydney. So it was a regular thing, was to go to Surfers Paradise or Lakeside to watch the Group A touring cars. Jim Richards, Tony Longhurst, all those guys, especially the BMWs. For some reason, it was a brand that I loved. There was a few people around our area that had some BMWs, and I always used to love those cars. So the blocks were building from a young age.
Yeah, there was certainly an introduction there, that going into that world of motorsport, and I guess seeing those things at full noise as well.
Yeah.
Around Lakeside, Surfers Paradise. Unfortunately, that track no longer here.
Yep. But great times. Good. We went to the Speedway exhibition up here in Brisbane. Went to the drags at Surfers Paradise when they had drag racing on.
Yeah, right.
So it was a good thing. My dad was into cars, and we went to some nice events, and it just got the spirit of that whole adrenaline of motorsport.
Yeah. Sucked you into it.
Sucked me right in. Sucked me right in as a young guy. Yeah, that's for sure.
And obviously a bit of a translation from being, a fan behind the fence to finding yourself wanting to tinker. How did that how did the idea of becoming a technician, and particularly becoming a technician with BMW, how did that start coming together?
It was at the end of high school. I finished year 12. I didn't really have an exact focus of what I wanted to do. Even then, it was like, what am I going to do? Mum and Dad said, hey, if you want to go to university, what are you going to study? I said, you know what? I'm over school.
Yeah.
And Dad said, well, get an apprenticeship. And he had connected me up with a couple of his contractor people, Sparkies, to go and spend some time with them through school holidays. And I liked the technicality of working with electricity. I thought, this is good, this is interesting, and I was enjoying that. And then finished high school back in the day when you'd be looking at the Courier Mail for the jobs. And then I saw an apprenticeship ad in the job section for Annan & Thompson, and the BMW Roundel was printed on that little black and white ad in the newspaper, and I thought, BMW, apprentice motor mechanic. I think I might apply for that.
That could work.
And did my CV up better and sent it away and got an interview and got the position. So, and that was the start.
And was that a hard interview to get through? Like, how tough was the process? Was there a lot of competition at that time?
There was. I was told there was 300 applicants.
Bloody hell!
And so I was quite lucky to get through. Like, I think there was, from memory, 2 or 3 interviews.
Yeah, right.
The last interview was my mum and dad had to come down with me as well.
Really?
So it was quite a. I mean, that wouldn't happen these days.
No way. But, what did they have to do?
I don't know. Just
prove that they existed.
Perhaps. I don't know what the theory was. They just wanted to meet my mum and dad as well.
Wow.
So
just ensure that you were good stock.
Possibly, yes, yes. But so I was lucky enough to. They took on 2 apprentices that year. Myself and another guy. And
so where was that dealer?
Where the Bunnings is now at Newstead, opposite Porsche. Yeah,
just there.
Yep, Annan Thompson was in there. Yep.
There you go.
So they had BMW, Audi, Subaru, Volkswagen, Renault, Peugeot, Fiat Lancia, and BMW.
Yeah, wow. So a fair collection.
Yeah.
What year was this?
81, 82.
81, 82. Yeah.
I'm going to think of the time frame.
No, that's all right. Yeah, again, I'm just trying to put into context. Because, again, that's not a dealer group I was familiar with.
Yeah. Well, by the time my apprenticeship finished, BMW Australia was sort of becoming more stronger, and they wanted all the dealers to have the Taj Mahal standalone BMW dealers.
Yes, and not just all the Euro stuff jammed into one place.
Which Annan Thompson was. They weren't prepared to build that. And City BMW opened up on the south side where South Bank was. So they had Mazda and BMW. They lost the franchise and they moved their dealership because of Expo being built there.
Yes.
And then Tony Mollison, who was chief of BMW New Zealand, came over and opened Brisbane BMW.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And those early days at BMW, because this is when you're actually having to rent your car and not just plug it into a computer to see what's wrong with it. So that era, what sort of cars were you playing with there at the BMW group? What did they have a lot of coming through?
Oh, it was, E21 323i's, 318s, 5 Series E28 5s, 7 Series E23s, and then the new models were coming through. The E30 was released, 3 Series. And then just following on with all the new models. So it was that era.
So into the E30. So you came into it at a good time.
Oh, definitely. Plus, there was still classic stuff that I call classic that I'm into. Were coming into the dealerships, like the 3-litre E9 coupes, the E3 sedans, all that kind of stuff was there. Yeah. So at the time, you're going, oh wow, this is a little bit older, but I was in love. The 6 Series was never imported to Australia officially back then either. So there was a few privately imported 6s that were coming in.
When did they start coming in? Because they did get
86. They were officially brought back in.
Right.
There was a few privately complied cars that were 633s sort of in the late 70s, but most of them were privately imported.
Because that's a hell of a car.
Oh yeah, beautiful. That was my dream machine.
Was it
at
really?
The time. Yep.
That one.
That was the first car I bought when I moved to the UK.
Was it really?
Find myself an E24 635 CSI.
Wow. They are stunning though. I mean, that's that was a classic car.
I've owned quite a few of those.
I have no doubt. Mate, how many years to knock over your apprenticeship? How long?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah, back in that day. I don't know whether it's different these days, but 4 years.
And you've also got the Master Technician. Is that an additional layer of training, or is that just?
Yeah, it was. BMW Australia was the first to set that up properly amongst all the BMW concessionaires around the world. So they put that in place with a tiered system of levels of a registered technician, then a senior technician, and then a master technician.
Right.
So with exams annually and things like that. So you went to Melbourne or Sydney and did these massively high pressured exams of diagnosis, 2 or 3 days worth of absolute pressure to work out situations and problems that they put into cars. And I was lucky enough to pass that. The first group of master technicians in Australia, of the 7 guys that were the first to get through. So yeah, that was
So
good.
you're part of that. You're part of the very
I
first,
was part of that first group.
very
Yeah.
first Master Technicians.
Yeah, yeah. And then having that training passport when I travelled to the UK, I just did a bit of a a European holiday,
Yeah.
and dropped into a few BMW dealers. This was '89, and then lots of places going, wow, this is fabulous. Yeah, come back and work for us. So
Yeah,
anyway,
right.
but
Because I was going to ask how that all started, and actually, I was going to also wanted to know on the tests if they asked why are the indicators not working?
yeah, well, but this was the thing. They gave real curly problems
Did
as well
they?
as real basic stuff,
Really?
like the fuse is blown, and they wanted the talking to the guys later.
Yeah.
They wanted to analyze your diagnostic process.
Yeah, right.
And that's what it was all about. It's not whether you actually solved it, it's whether your process was consistent, that even if you didn't solve 1 out of the 15 problems, they could see that you would have got there in the end.
Yeah, right.
So that was the main thing that they wanted
Was
to
the
see.
complex problem solving ability.
Yep. Easy stuff.
Yep.
Because a lot of people will just jump straight to the complex without
Yeah.
checking the basics.
And it might actually be the basics.
Yep. And there was one that they chopped the terminal off a fuse.
Oh,
and
really?
popped it in the fuse box. So it looked perfect, fine.
Yeah.
But unless you tested it
and pulled it out, you wouldn't have.
Yeah.
See, that's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's actually quite a complex.
Yeah. So it was there to test you.
Mate, the rigors of that are actually that's see, it all starts making sense as I, think forward in my head. So you've done that. So how many years did you stay at that dealership? So you obviously finished your apprenticeship and then
from Allen and Thompson, moved to City BMW.
Yep.
So South Brisbane. And then that was only a year. So it was 86-ish. And then 87, Brisbane BMW opened up. Tony
Right.
Mollison, Wallace Bishop built the building, and then moved in there. I was one of the first techs that they employed there.
Is that still the same footprint?
That's now the Mercedes-Benz building.
Yeah, right.
There.
Okay.
That whole building sort of got extended. So I was there for a while, quite a few years. Then 91, decided I'm going to move overseas.
That was the ejection.
Yeah,
and
follow the dream.
What drove that?
I guess it was just a passion of travel. I got the travel bug, and it was a case of putting all the pieces together of wanting to go and work on cars that I couldn't work on here in Australia.
Yeah, gotcha.
And also the travel. My dad's side of the family, his parents were born on the Channel Islands, so I could get a grandparent ancestry visa.
Oh, nice.
So that meant I didn't have the typical working holiday visa. I could actually get permanently employed. And that's why I could stay there for 14 years. Well,
that helps. Yeah, that gets the shortcut. I was wondering.
Yeah, so it's pieces of the jigsaw puzzle all just sort of gelled, and I thought, let's push the button and make it happen.
Bugger it. Because had you been over there before, or this was?
I did a trip in '89, which, like I said before, about when I just dropped into a couple of dealers.
Yeah, so that was what planted the seed of going on
back. Yep,
this could work.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, so you've pulled the pin, you've given your notice here.
Yeah.
And you've gone, see you later, everybody. Did you have an idea of how long you were going to go for? Did you have a picture in your head of?
No, when you do these things, see the economy was going a little bit downhill here at the time.
89 was spicy.
Yeah, and so I thought I'm going to go on an extended holiday. I sold all my things, sold my BMWs that I had at the time, sold my go-kart, sold everything. And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to ski myself stupid in Canada for 6 months.
Nice.
So I headed to Canada, bought a little car over there and travelled around by myself, and just travelled between ski resorts and skiing myself to the point where I didn't want to ski anymore.
Couldn't take it anymore. Yeah.
And then that was the point where I thought, I'll catch up with some friends who had moved to San Diego. So I went right down that west coast, and then headed off to the UK. So
none of the American cars tickled your fancy?
None at all. I dropped into a couple of BMW dealers whilst I was there, just to feel out the whole network that they ran over there. Had a few good job offers, but the UK had better appeal.
Yeah.
As I could get a work visa there. The US was too complex with green cards and stuff like that. People.
See, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let it go. Yeah. Okay, so then you've jumped over to the UK. Where did you base yourself?
Initially, it was in London with some great friends of mine, Natasha and Kieran. They'd already moved there 6 months earlier. When I left, they'd left, but I went skiing. They went straight to the UK. They're both accountants, got great jobs in the UK. So they'd established a nice base in Paddington, in London. So they said, no, come and stay with me for a while. So stayed with those guys and did a little bit of travel, looked for work, had a few job offers by the time I'd run around all the dealers and decided on a brand new dealer that was about to open. They weren't opening till August, so I had a month before they opened. They wanted me to start in that group. They had 4 dealerships in North London, and went for another trip around Europe for a bit. Came back, started work with the Mill Cars group at their Temple Fortune dealership, which was a brand spanking new dealership.
Nice. And being one of the first staff in a new dealership as well, you could sort of help set the standard, I guess, of how things were going to be done. Yeah,
it was good, and there was a good bunch of guys there that they were a fairly big group, so they'd sort of picked a good bunch of people to work in that group, and it was good there. Good place to ride the recession out in that group through the UK for, I think I was with them for about 4 years.
Yeah, right.
And then moved to another group out at Slough in near Reading. And then they moved me up to Milton Keynes because they were building another dealership, brand new dealership there, and they wanted a master technician in each dealership.
Yes, makes sense.
And where I was living in St Albans was Milton Keynes was a bit closer, and I was going against the traffic, and it was just a good choice to move up there to another fresh dealership.
And while you were over there, did you get to tinker with some motorsport stuff, or was it all just...
I was trying to do my own stuff. I did a lot of kart racing, endurance kart racing. There was a group of guys, managers and people that we got together at the dealership at Milton Keynes, and we formed a team.
Nice.
Part of that team was Rick Parfitt, his son, Rick Jr. from Status Quo. He was part of our team, and we'd sort of travel around Europe and the UK doing endurance kart racing. Yeah,
good.
24-stroke endurance karts.
What was the team called?
Quo Racing.
Quo Racing.
Yeah. I've still got the race suit at home.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah. And a bomber jacket.
The bomber jacket would be sweet.
Yeah. Well, we went to Le Mans, the 24-hour race for karts.
Oh, really?
Was, 2 or 3 weeks before the main race.
Yeah.
Over to Europe in the tour bus with beds, kitchen and everything like that. So the team with all the karts and all the gear, there's 8 of us.
Yeah.
And, it was good.
That's rock and roll that stuff.
It was.
All the boys in the bus going motor racing.
It was
shenanigans.
Yeah, it was fun. But you had to be focused.
Of course you do.
We were there to try and win.
And how did that go? Like, did you have a bit of success with?
We were up against some good teams. I was lucky enough to qualify the kart that year in second position.
Yeah.
And it was a typical case of being on the right tyres with changing weather conditions.
Yes.
And I just got it on second spot in the grid. Nice. I think we came 10th that year out of 78 karts.
Bloody hell, that's a big field.
Yeah. Well, it was a big track as well, like a very, very big, long track. So it was great.
What was the best track to race over there? Because that's the thing we're all jealous of here in Australia is
actual motor racing tracks.
Yeah.
Brands Hatch was probably the most challenging track I drove on. I've driven Silverstone, Brands Hatch, a couple of other of the smaller ones, but Brands was interesting just because of the undulation and stuff like that.
That's what you need.
Yeah.
What about the Formula 2? Where did that slot in?
A good mate of mine, Shane Flynn, I was looking after being a mechanic for him while he did the Australian Championship. This was back mid-80s.
Yeah, right.
And while I was doing a bit of kart racing, and he said, I'll come and span it for me and I'll let you use the car in local club events.
Nice.
So I said, I'm up for that.
Good deal.
So, so I used to go away with him on weekends and be his mechanic. And then when there was some local club stuff, Lakeside and things like that, he'd say, take the car up and
go and have a burn.
Yeah. So I learned a lot with that.
I'll bet you did.
Yeah, that was good fun.
And then the kart stuff. So how far did you take that? Or did it really sort of stay kind of club?
Oh, it was club stuff. In Australia, it was all club stuff. I'd never went to an Australian Championship, but nearly won the Queensland Championship. We've all got those stories about how I nearly won. But I got shunted off in the first corner of the first race.
As does happen.
Yeah, but the stuff in England was good because it was pretty consistent. It was a really good series over there to do that.
and clearly well supported. I mean, if you got
Very.
70, I mean, that's
Yeah.
a massive amount of teams.
Yeah, and that's the thing about motorsport in Europe is it's grassroots level from
Oh,
karting up. It's just massive
ridiculous.
everywhere. There's industry is based around it.
Yeah.
And there's circuits that you can race on everywhere. Kart
Yeah.
circuits, race circuits. And that's a whole another topic about what I hate about motorsport in Australia is that they keep throwing money at temporary street circuits
Yep.
where every state needs a
You need a dedicated
motorsport.
Well, honestly,
circuit.
that's a topic that I love, because on the one hand, I watch the government saying get hoons off the streets, and then on the other side, I watch them closing down racetracks.
Yeah,
and that is an immense frustration.
it is
Watching those things. You build a house next to it, people complain, and then they shut the racetrack. Wakefield has been
been
tragedy this year, and down in the cane fields there, extreme karting, they got shunted because someone's unhappy and wants to put apartments on the land or whatever the roundabout is there.
But the government throw millions at putting a temporary circuit up. Gold Coast, Townsville. There's two
absolutely
in Queensland that they've huge amounts of money that could have gone into a dedicated proper international standard motorsport.
And don't get me wrong, I was a big fan of Indy.
Look,
that was special.
There's a place for all these events, but the bottom line is we haven't got the depth of motorsport industry in Australia because of that lack of
facilities.
Yeah,
because it's proper grassroots here. If you're not paying for it yourself, and paying for the infrastructure yourself, it just doesn't exist. And that's why we're lucky that we've been so fortunate here that Tony Quinn's come in and pumped some money into QR.
That's right.
And has taken it from what was previously an embarrassment that you'd be ashamed to take sponsors and guests to, whereas if you've been out there recently, it's very respectable.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's bloody great. But that's private investment.
Exactly. And the Queensland government should get on board with that now.
Oh,
hey,
look at what's happening.
Let's try and
getting better.
Keep that going.
Yeah, keep it going because we've got the space, we've got the facilities. Just needs that little bit of love.
Exactly.
No, we could.
We could divert down that road.
We could dance down that all the way because I think the other one that breaks my heart is that Archerfield Speedway is obviously under the knife, and that's a historic place, and that's about to cop it too. But anyway, we'll ignore that. We'll focus on how much better motorsport is in Europe, which we all know. Okay, so karting aside, motorsport aside, so you've been working there for the dealer groups. This is where one of the parts of the story that I'm obviously very excited about. How on earth did you find yourself at McLaren?
It's a combination of some good pieces of jigsaw puzzles all coming together.
Yes.
Lucky enough, being a master technician in the UK, I was invited annually to the Apprentice of the Year Awards for BMW, which was held at Bracknell, BMW GB. Now, when the McLaren F1 was just about to be released or was in the media, they had XP3 there as part of the display for the apprentices to see, and a few key people from McLaren Cars there.
Right.
One was the production manager and one was the customer care manager. They hadn't actually set up customer care properly then, but he was involved. That manager was still involved in the production side at that point. Strangely enough, I made myself quite well known to them and chatted to them for quite a while.
On purpose?
Oh, yes.
You could smell it. Okay,
yeah. And, I was blatant enough being an Aussie, you can get away with that kind of stuff in the UK. Yeah, say, what's the chance of getting a job with you guys? And then Harold Dermott, who was my future manager for customer care, he said, look, we're going to be advertising at some point. We need technicians as we grow that department to look after these cars in service. Keep your eyes on Autosport magazine. There'll be an ad and apply.
Interesting.
I thought, all right, I know the name.
Yeah.
I know who to apply to. Just keep my eyes. I was religiously buying Autosport magazine every week. But the other nice part was that a good customer that I'd made friends with at the dealership, where I originally started in Temple Fortune, who's a doctor. He had an E28 M5. He knew one of the gearbox engineers at McLaren Cars.
Right.
So when the ad turned up, I had my CV ready.
Oh,
It was just
yeah.
ready to
go.
And I rang my mate up and said, "Can you get me
Yeah.
to see your mate so I can hand my CV to him?"
Yep.
And he said, "Yep, no worries, make that happen." Took the afternoon off, drove down to Woking. They'd already introduced, by phone.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was expecting me. So I turned up. Tim Feast was his name. I met him, had a quick meeting. He said, "Look, whilst you're here, Scott, no point giving it to me. Let's go down and you can give it straight to Harold Dermott." And this was the guy that I'd already met.
Yeah. Perfect.
8 or 9 months earlier.
Laid the groundwork.
Yeah. So I said, "You remember me? Here's my CV. I'm applying for the job." So it was good that people that you meet
Yes.
can help you out. And it was really just having the ear and the balls to jump the queue.
Yeah. Just rock up.
Yeah, here I am.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough that they called me back for an interview. And in that interview, I found out that they were wanting to employ 2 people.
Right.
So a good mate of mine who I was working with, I said to him, "Duncan, mate, you've got to apply for this as well."
Yeah.
So when I went back for a second interview, I handed them his CV and made him a recommendation. So you should. Anyway, long story out of that one. We both worked there for years, and then one of my other good mates got a job in admin. So there was 3 good mates who were working in customer care. Yeah. So Duncan Hill and Guy Montague Pollock, they good mates of mine that we all worked together for years. Went to Le Mans 24 hours every year together. Did lots of great stuff together.
You stitched that up well, didn't you?
Yeah. So it was a good opportunity that I kind of pushed to make happen. But it was an opportunity too good to miss. Took quite a big pay cut to go there out of the BMW group, but it was more important the work than the money.
To be part of that. Yep. Because at that stage, and you'll have to help me through some of the timing because I'm not 100% on it. Was the car already released at that stage, or was it pre?
Yeah. No, I joined in 96.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was mid production. They were building in the 40s. But they realised that that they didn't expect the owners to be using the cars so much.
Right.
And they wanted to set up a customer service department.
Yeah, right.
To look after
people were running up the kilometres.
Yeah.
On these.
They honestly thought that there was just going to be a car that would sit in people's collections.
Right.
They hadn't thought about it, but anyway. It was a case of they wanted to get technicians on board that could look after the whole car.
Yeah.
Because from the Formula One world, they had specialists in each area and guys who only ever worked on suspension, only ever gearboxes, only ever electronics, engines. So they wanted master technician types.
Yep.
Who could understand the whole car.
Back. Yeah.
Fly to the other side of the world and solve problems and fix stuff. So that's what the role entailed.
And see, this is just wild because, they've gone and released something that realistically the world had never seen. They've gone and produced the fastest production car made to date. They'd done that ridiculous seating layout that's just incredible. And it's
Gordon Murray's design was
a crying shame that it hasn't been replicated anywhere else with that center driving position.
Well, McLaren released the speed tail with a central driving position, very similar. But there's a few arguments there I've heard through the grapevine about the design with Gordon Murray's design. But Ferrari even did something similar in the 60s with a 3-seater. Matra was another car that had a 3-seater. I actually owned a Matra Murena.
Yeah, right.
In England for a little while. But interesting French car, but not at central driving position. It was 3. But interesting engineering.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It was such a groundbreaking car. What was it like being introduced to that vehicle for the first time?
I was very, very nervous. I can remember some of my first days there, having the boss saying, "You can touch it, Scott. You can sit inside it.
You're allowed near it.
Yeah, you're allowed to work on it."
Got your white gloves on, and
yeah, I was very awestruck. But it's the environment that you work in as well.
Yes.
and that whole McLaren experience, where the ethos of the company from Ron Dennis down through everybody, the perfection of achieving perfection in everything you do, is key. You certainly learn that very quickly.
Yeah.
And if you're not the kind of person that can deliver that and conform to that environment, you generally don't stay there. You see guys come and go.
It's not the place for you.
Yeah. But the guys who are there and they've stayed there and they're in that zone, engineering and the level of, well, in our department was perfection in customer care.
Yeah.
For a car that level of customer care had never existed, because it needed to match the car that had never existed before. So we set some high standards, and that's just based on the ethos that flowed right through the company. So it was good times.
And what surprised you about coming to McLaren?
Surprised me, I guess, just that work environment was great.
Yeah.
And again, the people who owned the cars, the biggest majority were passionate car people.
I'll bet they were.
There were quite a few owners who just were that collector, and you never had anything to do with them, or you just looked after their car. But there were a lot of customers who were passionate car people.
Who just loved it.
Yeah. Come to the factory.
Obviously, one of the notable owners, and again, I don't expect you to talk about anybody, but, Rowan Atkinson obviously being, a very passionate owner, who just loved it, loved driving it, dusted it up a few times.
And I helped repair the car a couple of times. And in doing that, got to know him a little bit as well, which was great. And he wanted to know the guys who worked on his car.
I'll bet he did. Because again, being an enthusiast, he strikes me as a sort of bloke that would actually want to hang out and learn a few things about the car.
Yeah. There was a time as well where after we'd repaired the car after the first big accident, he was doing a talk. Andrew Lloyd Webber at his country mansion. They do this industry thing with all the people from the arts, a weekend where everybody is the entertainment. So all the entertainment people are there as the weekend. And Rowan wanted to take the F1 down there and do a speech on it.
Yeah, right.
So I put the car in the trailered it down there, and he said, I've set this podium up, this round podium, got to get it up onto this thing, and it'll be rotating. We'll have the cover over it. And he said to me, now, Scott, when I start talking about Concorde, I want you to walk from the back and then just start to slowly lift the cover off the car. I said, right, I'm in.
Yeah.
So I want you to help me out.
Got this.
So he's making this great speech about the McLaren F1 and, comparing it to Concorde and things like that. And then he gives me this little look.
Gives you the side eye.
And I start to walk towards the front of the car and start to pull the cover off. And he goes, not now, Scott, not now, not now. I'll put the cover back on, walk to the back of the car, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? And then he keeps going on and on, and he starts talking about Concorde again. And I go up to pull the cover. He goes, not now, Scott, not. And then I'm realizing now I'm part of his comedy act.
Oh, you're the stitch up.
Yep. So everybody's in stitches by this point. And then I'm at the back of the car, and he talks about Concorde a little bit more. And then he goes, now, Scott, now. And everybody's pissing themselves laughing. It was so good. And he thanked me so much for that later.
Oh, what a legend.
But he didn't let me in. He just wanted the comic humor of him controlling the whole thing.
Absolutely.
It was a brilliant afternoon.
Oh, what a good dude.
He asked me to take all the guests for laps around the country estate in his car for the next hour or two.
Oh.
So little times like that where you have these experiences that you remember for the rest of your life.
Oh, that's surreal.
These were the pleasures of the people that you meet.
And that's always the thing. It's the thing that, I've enjoyed in my career as well, is that, working at high levels in these things, you find yourself in places you couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
At Andrew Lloyd Webber's country house, helping Rowan Atkinson. I mean,
you pinch yourself some days and go, that actually happened.
That really happened.
Yeah.
And like fanging like that McLaren, you've done hot laps.
Yeah.
With people in it.
Yeah.
You know, that's hilarious when you actually say it out loud, isn't it?
Mm.
And you sort of go, "Oh, that's just the job."
Well,
But-
at the time, it was just a job, and this
Yeah.
was way before social media was invented. We had
Yeah.
a very strict privacy,
Oh,
confidentiality
absolutely.
policy in McLaren cars. No photographs,
No.
nothing. We never talked about owners and their names,
never.
stuff like that. So it was very, very because that's what we set the standard, and the customers appreciated that.
Of course, the
Um,
discretion's a huge part of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So it was all. You know, I've got hardly any photos of that period
time.
at that time because
yeah.
of the restrictions that we had on us. But these days, part of a company's brief is to get as much
as much coverage as possible.
Yeah.
And it's actually probably sad that a lot of that's lost to the ages, and it's just lost to stories now because you know, it wasn't recorded.
Yeah, I've got lots of good stories, but that's maybe another day. But
yeah, I'm sure. And again, I don't want to get you in trouble here, but I figured I figured Rahul was a pretty safe target, given that he was
he's very in
profile.
the media, high profile owner. Yeah, but there was lots of owners who weren't high profile, just very wealthy business people.
Yeah, discretion.
Yep.
And they generally, people that have those sort of things really don't want to talk about it.
Yeah,
and they don't want you talking about it either. So.
That's right. And that was in that day as well. Maybe things are a bit different now. A lot of cars are in the US. They're with the current world of social media, everybody's happy to be having their car out there and stuff like that. So it was a different time in the 90s.
It was a different time. Geez, that's a good story.
Yeah.
So your time at McLaren, and I'll have to share, there's the photo of you sitting in the McLaren F1 that is one of my favorite photos that I've seen you share before. I don't know, like that whole thing just makes me smile. When did you wind up at McLaren? When did that finish?
That was 2004, and the SLR project. I was in our department. We were doing we were developing the SLR for Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, and
our department was involved in a lot of the crash testing, putting the cars back together, together with the engineers, understanding the areas that could be repaired, making repair sections. So in the field, these cars could be repaired and still have the same signature in a crash, because the carbon fiber had to be able to be exactly that same signature for the same impact after it had been repaired.
Yeah, right.
So all the technology going and watching the cars being smashed into concrete barriers or deformable barriers at certain speeds and certain angles, and then repairing those with the engineered sections that the engineering team had developed. So that was interesting work. I was actually in charge of the special tools for creating all those special tools that were needed out in the service world for Mercedes-Benz.
So designing and manufacturing.
Yeah, because we were the team that were pulling the cars apart and understanding where the needs were of a special tool because we can't get to that, so we need a tool to do that. How are we going to pull the engine out? So a big cradle to pull engines out and things like that with special pieces. So there was about 14 or 15 special tools that were developed that I was in charge of going to Blitz in Germany, the manufacturer of special tools, dealing with those guys.
And see, that would have been cool, the crossover with Mercedes, because obviously their technology, you know, I've been fortunate enough to have a tour sort of behind the scenes at Mercedes Formula One, and sort of got to see some of the places you're not supposed to see.
Yeah.
And mate, I was blown away at the science. I was blown away at the level that they work to and the R&D. So having two companies like Mercedes and McLaren partnering on something like that.
It was an interesting time because there was Mercedes in their road car world, and it's a massive company.
Massive. Yeah.
There was 16 specialists just for one little area, and we were dealing with lots of different departments. And I remember going over for meetings in Stuttgart, and we were there. Like 3 of us went over from McLaren, and they had like 20 people from Mercedes there, and there was a specialist, and their job was making sure the box was the right size for the part or the tool that we created.
Seriously?
Yeah. So it was like like, you're a bit soon because we haven't developed any of these tools yet, but nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Give us your card. And
G'day, box guy.
Yeah. So there was a box person. That's all his role was to create the packaging boxes to put either parts or tools or whatever in. So massive company, and we're just a little group of guys who are punching above our weight, really, doing the best we can to get this car developed, and in that area, doing some pretty interesting work. But to answer your question, it was 2004 that was happening. But my mum wasn't well, so there was a desire to head back to Australia. I had to sort of commit probably to another big chunk of life in the UK. Yeah. So it was a time that I thought
you had to make the call.
Yeah, had to make the call, come back, spend the last 2 years with my mum out here, and then that sort of got me back into the groove of being in Brisbane.
Yeah. Before we round out on McLaren, that SLR, so were you there at the end of production, or you didn't make it all the way to?
At the beginning of production.
Beginning of production,
yes,
right?
Yes, because they set up the production line in TC, the new building. And I was there as they started to produce the early cars. Yeah. It had been delayed quite a bit. I went out to Ideata quite a lot with, they did some customer events, all the people who ordered cars. So there's a big proving ground in Spain where they invited customers who put their money down from all around the world, including Lindsay Fox, to come over and play. And we kept the cars running for 6 or 7 days. So after they'd played with the cars all day, we'd be working till midnight. Yeah. Replacing brakes and checking them over, things like that. And the nice part was we were still discovering stuff that needed to then go into the production cars to say, hey,
absolutely,
we've got diff issues here.
Well, that's actually a really good test, having a heap of customers that don't know the car but are trusted to be with the car to then go and flog the pants off it.
Yeah. So that was good fun. So yeah, lots of stuff happening there just as the cars were being built for customers and then being released to the world, and then that's when I left.
What was that car like to drive? They're not one. I've only ever seen one, and it was just doing hot laps at Nürburgring. That's actually the only time I've seen one being driven in anger.
They're a very, very fast car, beautifully balanced because it's a mid-engine, front engine car. So great turn in, nice balance on the limit. But a surprising package for what it is. And the technology of the engine was a very old school Mercedes, bit of a boat anchor of an engine, but it was a proven thing that they could bung an even bigger supercharger on it. And the first time that they'd used water to air intercooler cooling. So again, that was a special tool that had to be developed to bleed that system. So there was lots of good stuff like that on the car that just gave it immense grunt horsepower. But the funny thing was, I don't know whether you remember that they released an image or a vision. That's right, they called it the SLR Vision at Silverstone. Prior to the design of any of the car being done by McLaren.
Yeah, right.
So they'd released this. This is what the car's going to look like. Mercedes-Benz being Mercedes-Benz saying, "Yep, we now want you, McLaren, to build this car." And all the engineers are scratching their head, going, "Hang on, we do it differently here. We package everything and then put a skin over the outside of it."
Yeah.
And they went the other way and said, "No, you build us a car that looks like that, but it has to do." So it became a packaging nightmare compared to the F1, where it was perfectly engineered in every aspect. Yeah. And then the skin got put around the outside.
Yep.
Once everything was packaged perfectly.
Yeah.
So it very contrast in thinking.
Yeah.
In between those two projects.
Wildly different approaches. And the SLR always looks so understated as well. Like you knew it was a weapon, but very subtle.
Yes. They wanted it to still look very Mercedes-Benz and take a lot of the cues from the current F1 cars of the time. Yeah. And in many ways, it wasn't over luxurious, and we were expecting it always to be more luxurious, but they didn't want it to be that as well, which is fine.
Yeah, a little bit pared back.
Yeah. But it was an amazingly good, capable car, handling and performance. There's no doubt about that. For its day, it was a stonkingly good car.
And that was the end of the McLaren F1 production run as well? Was that
we'd already finished the production. Production finished in 98. Yeah, the last car was produced in 98.
Do you remember, because again, I don't have the number in front of me, how many F1s were produced?
106 chassis were built all up.
Right.
Yeah. So, including all the GTRs, spares, stuff like that.
Do you know how many still exist? Top of your head?
Oh, I know there's about 4 that's been destroyed over the years.
Didn't make it. There's always a couple.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's life. But yeah, they're worth so much these days.
Yeah.
That they're worth repairing.
Oh,
and,
absolutely.
They have the ability to remold sections and stuff like that. When I was there, there was some big crashes that.
And they could still go back and fix everything, because I guess they tooled everything themselves, so it wasn't.
That's right.
A big stretch.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've had to come back to Australia under, I guess, what are very unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can't imagine that was a particularly good time. But you've had to sort of get yourself settled here again. So how did that pan out?
I mean, the other thing was I got married on the way back here. So I had a wife who'd never been to Australia. We got married in Canada. And so it was an interesting time, looking after my ill mum, living at home, all those things. Had to get a job, needed to get a job to get a mortgage. So I actually started at a Mercedes-Benz dealership down the Gold Coast, just spinning the spanners. Workshop foreman. I just needed some kind of income to be able to go to the bank and say, need a loan. So I did that. Got then into the BMW world, where we met, and stayed there for quite a few years in the sales role that I was offered, because I couldn't get anything as technically challenging. I was trying to find work with BMW Australia and the manufacturers, and they couldn't offer me anything that was in that realm.
And was that sort of because, we're at a stage there in the mid-00s where the cars were moving towards being more of a computerized package? Was that part of it, that it was moving away from heavy technical analysis, or that it was just more bread and butter there, or what was the difference?
I think Australia automotive world is very different than cutting edge of what's going on in England and Europe and stuff like that.
Okay.
And that's probably the difference. And either the manufacturers that were still here in Australia at the time, or the importers, don't rely on someone as technically or what I've done in my career to be part of their network. So it was basically, if you want a job in cars, sales is the way to go.
To sell them. Okay, so it wasn't the intention to go into selling. That was just
that's
what was available.
Yeah,
and obviously you knew the product intimately.
Yeah, and I'd thought about it, and I thought, you know what, if I'm going to sell something to somebody, it's got to be something I'm passionate about. And
absolutely.
BMW is a brand I was very passionate about. So yeah, I thought this should be easy.
How did you find that transition from the workshop to the sales floor?
Well, the nice part was that working at McLaren, you do get a good understanding of customer relations and communication with people. So I kind of took that, as well as all the training from BMW. I must admit, they do some amazing sales training. And I felt a little bit fish out of water, but learning the product, I could talk about cars all day to people. It was the training that I needed, how to move people towards sale, road to a sale, getting the deal done. So that was all new, and I was learning rapidly, doing my best. So I think I did okay. I never did amazing, but I did okay. But after lots of years of doing that, and I had some nice challenges in the middle, like mini challenge and being involved with some special projects at that dealership, which was good fun. And that kept my passions alive in that area at the same time. So it was good.
you had a good opportunity to tinker, and it was always one of the nice things was they were always keen to play with different ideas. I honestly I thought Mini Challenge was really fantastic because obviously that was a time when Mini was really pushing in to the Australian market. Mini Challenge was obviously part of that as a broader concept. And that Mini Challenge car, tell me about how that sort of all came together with the Mini Challenge car and then you being involved as well in that series.
Mini Challenge came to Australia, and One Make series, these cars were sort of promoted as a full-on BMW Motorsport prepared vehicle. So a lot of reasonably high-profile people in motorsport thought, "Yep, let's get involved with this."
Good fun.
And the owner of the dealership that we worked at thought, let's get involved, because obviously through BMW Australia, it was all promoted out to the dealers to say, you guys should get involved, etc.
Absolutely.
And my talent was somehow discussed with the people running Mini Challenge.
Right.
And my services were exchanged for can't remember whether it was a car or something. Anyway, so I was given to them for free.
Nice.
To be the technical manager.
There you go.
For the series for the first year, knowing full well that I was going to throw myself into it and enjoy it, because it was a lot of data logging and things like that the technical manager had to be the liaison between the teams and BMW Motorsport, who built the cars, and the issues that you go into thinking, yeah, we'll get involved with this, but you don't understand that there's going to be all these amazingly frustrating issues with these fresh race cars.
Oh, of course.
Which had too much road car software still in them. They weren't pure race cars, and that was the biggest issue, that they really had just taken road cars and put roll cages in them, and that was it. They really should have made them a little bit less road car.
Yeah, so it'd still throw up some
lots of faults and stupid. I think because BMW didn't want to ever see engines blow up and stuff like that, they had a lot of safety stuff still in there that was causing frustrations for the drivers, going, well, I'm feeling it losing power here. It cuts out there.
So it is actually cutting itself out to protect itself.
Yeah, there's a lot of protection stuff that the Germans never admitted that was in it, but eventually they did.
Yeah, well, you could feel it.
Yeah,
mate, I want to bounce the limiter.
Yeah. And we had some really great professional drivers. Paul Stokel was in there for the first year, and guys like that you trust in that
they know a car.
They know what they're talking about.
Correct.
And we're constantly trying to get the feedback back to Germany, and we had some of the German guys come out. That was the best moment, because we could have them here in Australia, seeing what was going on, and you knew that they couldn't say stuff.
No,
but you go out and have a few drinks after a race weekend, and
mate, things just fall out.
Get a little bit more deeper into the conversation, and things get admitted to you. So it's always good. It's a nice feeling to have an influence on a whole series that by the end of that first season we'd sorted out a lot of frustrations. And then it went into another 3 years after that. Unfortunately, financially, things happened behind the scenes that meant that it didn't last.
No, and look, One Make series have always struggled. I look at all the series that have come and gone, in the many years that I've been paying attention, and they really do have a hard time when it is just a single car, single manufacturer. Yeah, mate. I reckon the Hyundai Excel series has to be the outlier. That's the only one
and that's just based on, again, cheap and privateer motorsport with no support from any branding.
No.
It's just a group of guys got together and go, let's just race all these things.
Let's just race these. These are cheap and good, and we'll thrash the guts out of them.
Formulate a very, very basic set of rules, and away we go.
That's got to be the best One Make series, I think. I'm trying to think of a series.
Well, there was the HQ series and the Gemini series back in the 80s.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they were pretty successful as well. The Geminis were very good, because that was again, like the Hyundai stuff now. Relatively inexpensive cars to buy.
You think about it, we're in the 2020s now. Those were being made in the 1990s, those cars, and they're still flogging the guts out of them.
Yeah, but there's plenty of them out there, so there's lots of parts, lots of body shells. So it worked.
Oh no, well, poor old Mini Challenge, because they were a cool car.
They were,
I actually really enjoyed. I got to tootle that around a little bit. That was that was a good thing. And so in terms of other special projects, was there anything else that sort of tickled your fancy in that time?
Got to build a couple of nice BMW E9 coupes. There was a lovely motorsport replica that we built, art car replica. I won't go into that case. There's names that I shouldn't mention.
People listening? Yep.
Of a particular artist. But that was a lovely car to build.
Yeah.
Good project. Got to enjoy that around Lakeside a few times from some
nice.
charity events. That car lives in Melbourne now.
Yeah, right. Is it part of a private collection or is it in a public?
It's a business ownership. The guys at Southern BM.
Yeah, right.
Plug, they own it now.
Nice.
They use it for
have it out on display.
Purposes.
That's a good looking car.
Yeah, it's still wrapped in the IMSA motorsport colours now.
Yeah.
So hidden the beautiful paintwork of the art car that we copied.
No, benchmarked.
Yes.
Benchmarked.
Yes.
Benchmark took influence from.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, there's a few small details that aren't that make it that 1%.
That's the margin of difference, right. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, your role there was sales, but you were certainly finding yourself reasonably enthusiastically pulled into other things. At some point in time, you've decided that you want to have a crack at this by yourself.
Yeah.
Talk me through how that started.
Well, I always had a bit of a passion. I had it in my head that, I really should do some stuff myself one day.
Yeah.
And I could see some openings, and I always had a passion for classic cars and tinkering at home with my own cars, doing it for friends. So I decided to jump out of the car dealership network and have a year off, see if there was anything else out there that I could get into. Did a bit of travel, bit of a sabbatical. And in that time, I couldn't think of anything else I'd rather be doing except cars. It was drawing me back all the time.
Yeah.
So when I got back from the travels, I had a few friends say, "Oh, can you fix this on my car? Can you fix this?" And I was, yeah. So I'm crawling around on their garage floors and doing improvements and things like that. And a couple of friends said, "Oh, you should do this for a business." And then that sort of triggered the, maybe that's not a bad idea. Let me just think about that. Let it bounce around in my head for a little while.
Yeah.
And then, that was the catalyst to really say, you know what, let's give it a go. And good support from my good close group of friends, encouragement. A few mentors sort of were backing me saying, like, this is right at the beginning of COVID.
Yeah. Terrible time.
If you can start a business and get it off
and
the
make
ground,
it survive,
then it'll be fine.
You'll never have any troubles.
Yeah. So, that was the passion of tinkering. I wanted to restore classic stuff, all the stuff I love.
Yeah.
Not service, brake pads, oil changes, but restoration is the majority. I mean, I still do a little bit of that for my clients, but not. It's mainly about the restoration and a bit of motorsport prep, which I've got to build that side of the business too.
Which is a bit of fun because the restoration, so that obviously speaks to you. So what are some of the cars that you've restored so far as part of the business?
Oh, a nice E24 635, nice black one. That was a colour change for the customer. And a 2002 E10, same thing, was a different colour, now black. And what else have we done? There's a E9 3-litre CSL being restored at the moment. That's going to end up being a lovely, lovely car. Then I've got an E30 M3 that I'm going to do for a customer soon.
Nice.
And there's been a couple of smaller projects where I'm doing parts of the mechanicals for people as well, where they'll look after sorting the bodywork out.
Yeah. And
then I'll do mechanical stuff that they're not capable of. So it's a bit of a
finesse.
Just doing the bits that people can't do themselves as well for some clients.
And, the name of the business makes sense, but how did that come about? Were there any other close names?
No, I think I created that business name back when I was still well and truly in the dealer world.
Yeah, right.
I started my Instagram account with that name.
Really?
And I'd had that combination of the thought of modern classic as in term that gets used
Yeah.
as, oh, that's a modern classic.
Yeah.
And I just thought Modern Classic Motorsport
Makes sense.
as a business name, it's probably not a bad thing. Let's register it. I officially registered it as a proprietary limited company way back then.
Yeah, right.
And I started the Instagram account before I had the courage to start the business.
Seriously.
So it was definitely a seed from
way back.
Way back. Yeah.
And in terms of starting the business, there's a lot that goes into it. What's caught you off guard in terms of setting up your own shop?
Off guard really is just the worry about where your customers are going to come from.
Yep.
And when you sign the lease on a building and you spend the money to set it up, and you then are going hell for leather to try and let everybody know what you're doing,
that you exist. Yep.
Without spending a lot of money.
Yep.
And I just thought, well, I need to just let all the people I know in this industry know what I'm doing. And but that was a good thing of your question catching me off guard was the worry, but then the nice surprise of how people find you fairly quickly.
Oh yeah,
which is good.
When you got skills,
well,
word travels fast.
Yeah, and the internet, social media. As much as I cringe with a lot of stuff about social media, but as a business, it works because what I do, if I go to cars and coffee events, allows me to display my wares, talk to customers, what's in the workshop, what I'm doing, keeps people informed and see what I'm doing.
Absolutely. And people love cool cars.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm finding that out, every day. I'm getting a phone call from somebody who's recommended me, or a friend of mine told me to give you a call about this. So there's this constant growth that's been steady, and that's the everyday phone calls weren't there in the beginning.
No.
And now it's on
its way.
It's on its way, which is good. Yeah.
And obviously I know a little bit about this. Are you able to talk to us about phase 2 of the business? Where it's going next?
Well, I'd always had a plan to have part of the business as car storage because it makes sense to look after customers' collections. That being motorsport cars that aren't regularly used, or classic cars, or just a collection for people passionate about cars and can't help themselves buying way too many of them would fit in their home.
Correct.
So you and I understand that.
We're very familiar with this, with too many toys, not enough space.
So that was a little section on my website when I created it for car storage that I needed to be patient to wait, and I've got to find the right building, and there's plans in place that hopefully next year we'll kick that off well. And when I do something, I'm going to do it well.
I have no doubt.
And it will be a nice facility.
No, there's one thing I've come to appreciate about you over the years. It is always perfection.
I strive for that.
Oh, mate, it is something that has always stood out. And even going down to your current workshop, when I walk through there, the level of presentation of the cars in there, you go to a lot of workshops and there's just, stuff everywhere. But
well, I try and keep it looking good in there. I mean, it's an old place. It's not the most amazing building, but it was a place to start.
Mate, it's shed number 1.
That's it.
Mate, my business started under my house.
There you go. Yeah. But you got to start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere.
Yeah. It's but I'm looking for the next step, and part of that next step is to move into something that has the ability to store customers' cars very well.
How big do you think you'll go? What do you reckon? Got a number in your head in terms of square meters?
Yeah, probably somewhere between 450 and 600.
Nice. Double stack? Is that the
Yeah, we'll go triple
stack. Nice. Oh, mate, I'm gonna have to compare notes on this.
That's the plan.
Yeah. And in terms of, you know, your race car preparation, what sort of stuff do you do there with the race car prep?
Oh, at the moment, it's really just customers who like to do track days.
Okay.
Just making those nice mods. Got a couple of good customers who just have cars that they want to go and do track stuff. So it's a case of making sure the car's capable of doing it, upgrading brake pads, better cooling for their brakes.
Just the little things.
Just the little things that take a road car into a better place for going out and doing sprint stuff. But yeah, would love to do a bit more. I've done a lot of stuff with a good friend and customer who's no longer with us, but prepped his tarmac rally car for many, many years. And so that was a nice experience to sort of take that from a relatively standard E30 M3 and develop that as over the years.
Yeah, into a full-blown track weapon.
Yeah, it's a pretty good package at the moment, and very capable of being a good track weapon or a tarmac rally car.
Yeah. So it's good fun. And with the sort of cars that you're looking to work on, you know, what for you, what are the cars that make you smile? When someone rings up and says, I've got one of these, what's the sort of car that really makes you smile?
Oh, any classic BMW really is. That's my main thing. I love Porsche 911s as well. The older stuff. You know, old Ferraris even though I sort of have a bead of sweat.
Every
some
time
of those. But yeah, definitely European cars is my thing.
All the Euro stuff.
Yeah,
it's always going to be a lot of Beamers. And
but I love to go cars and coffee events and just look at everything that's out there.
Just see what's see what's around. Find yourself some occasional new challenges.
Oh, I've got people wanting me to restore Alphas and stuff like that. I've got a few customers with Alphas as well as BMWs, but it's nice to have work in the pipeline.
Always. Bloody hell, I don't know if you're ready to do that to yourself.
Not quite, but we'll see. It's good to know that, you know, people would like you to do it, whether you take the job on eventually, because I've got a reasonably good forward flow of work at the moment, which is good.
Oh mate, they're fun cars, being a long-term Alfa Romeo owner myself, but boy oh boy, they can provide some headaches.
Yeah, but it's the era of those cars, the design, the technology.
Mate, the design, and look, the sound. Because, you know, where we're going now with, you know, cars that, you know, operate like your toaster, as impressive as the technology is, the lack of raw passion, and I'll give Alfa Romeo something. The electrics might be shocking, the metal might be rusting, but bloody hell, when you get up it, oh, that sound.
Yeah, the mechanicals in Fiat's Alphas, you know, they knew what they were doing to make a good driver's car.
Makes you smile just thinking about it. You know, watching. I remember when I bought mine, I had a Cloverleaf Boxer, one of the 1.7s with the twin downdraft Webers into the horizontally opposed 4-cylinder. And I remember my mechanic saying, he said to me, mate, if you want this thing to last, you got to run it to redline every day. Like, righto, mechanic told me to.
Let's do
it. And it just loved it. Like, I had that car for 200,000 kilometers, I reckon I put on that. And mate, just flogged it day in, day out. And it just loved it. Like, that was what it was built to do. It was built to rev it. It'd just sing. But I did also, you know, crack the chassis and, you know, a few other things where they're a bit, that Russian steel.
Rust and steel.
Didn't work well. Now, Scotty, I'm conscious of your time. I'm not going to hold you up too much longer. Mate, if people want to get in touch with you and follow the things that you do, where can they find you?
Best place, I guess, is Instagram or Facebook. So it's Modern Classic Motorsport on Instagram, all one word. And I've got a Facebook version of that as well. Plus my website is
same name.
modernclassicmotorsport.com.au.
Beautiful. So what I'll do is I'll throw some links underneath this so that people can click through and have a look. But Scotty, absolute pleasure.
Likewise, mate.
Having you here this morning, sharing your story, sharing a few funny ones as well. And mate, I really look forward to what happens next. We might have to catch up again once the new warehouse is open.
Yeah. When we get to that point, I'll definitely come in and we'll have another chat.
Show me what's next.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's it for today. We'll catch you next time.